And welcome back to NostalgiaCast. I'm Darin.
And I'm Jonny.
And today we'll be talking about Godzilla vs. MEGALON from 1973, directed by Jun Fukuda, starring a bunch of Japanese guys in rubber monster suits. We'll be joined by our friends Dan and Angela from Dissect That Film, the podcast. I've been meaning to chat with Dan and Angela for a bit. Dan is a huge Godzilla and kaiju fan. Kaiju means giant monster. And Angela, by default, is a Godzilla fan because Dan is a Godzilla fan. So this will be a fun conversation, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one, Darin, because this is new for me. And so I'm not really familiar with Godzilla. So this should be a lot of fun.
Okay, sounds great. We'll go ahead and we'll cut to our title and we'll be back to talk Godzilla vs. MEGALON. All right, Godzilla vs. MEGALON, 1973, directed by Jun Fukuda, starring a bunch of Japanese people. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. That's
please,
really bad.
Please.
So it's starring, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Katsuhiko Sasaki, Hiroyuki Kawase, Yutaka Hayashi, and Robert Dunham.
Wow.
As Emperor Antonio. Emperor Antonio.
Only easy
Like you
name.
couldn't get more Italia. That's crazy. Anyway, Jonny, so I wanted to welcome our next special guest. It's Dan and Angela of Dissect That Film. They are 2/3 hosts of that podcast with Brett Parker. How are you doing, my friends?
I am doing as good as I can. I
Before-
woke up from a nap about an hour ago. So
Oh, well
I got
rested.
home
Yeah.
from work about an hour ago.
Oh, wow. You guys are committed. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you for that.
Oh no, but my plan was to be home at 5. I was
Oh.
home 3 hours late.
All right.
Before I say anything about how I am,
Yeah.
in your face, Parker. Just want to say that we're here first. Anyway,
That's right.
Seriously.
That's right. I connected with Brett Parker first on social media and then got introduced to you guys again through Dissect That Film. So, yeah, I guess Brett should feel a little bit bad, but I guess you're doing all the rubbing in, so that's great.
We give him a hard time. He goes on everybody else's show before, so we just kind of
Sure.
rib him about it, but it's fine. He's
It's
the
about
face.
time.
It's fine.
Yeah.
We get it. It's
Take
okay.
that. So again, I've become really good friends with you through Dissect That Film and through Brett, and we've had some really good conversations. And so again, when I was thinking about Godzilla versus a Godzilla movie that I wanted to do, I didn't necessarily think it was going to be MEGALON at first. Thank you for showing the toy, Dan. We're
have to.
collectors, but so I thought of you guys. Like you guys have talked about your love for kaiju. You talked about your love for Godzilla. And you've done podcasts covering the giant monster movies, and so you were the first person that I thought of. First people. I guess you're one, so I'm calling you. When I refer to you as person, you're just one.
We're a collective. It's fair.
So if
we've
you
been
wanted-
married long enough.
Yeah, I hear that. It's a unit, right? So.
Yeah.
Well, as far as Dissect That Film goes, explain to us, again, the whole point of having you on is to make our listeners fall in love with you guys and have them listen to Dissect That Film. So tell us a bit about yourselves. Tell us a little bit about Dissect That Film and why you mean so much to me. I guess we'll put it that way.
Okay, well, first off, so there I was. Anyway, no, Dissect That Film is it's not really a film review podcast. We quote unquote dissect movies, which is really just a bunch of people hanging around talking about movies.
Right.
Yeah.
Parker's the main guy. I like to say we're all
Parker.
hosting. I know, but he's usually over there, and this is the hand gestures. But anyway, Parker is the main dude. He kind of keeps. He's the dude that has all the knowledge, and he makes things happen, and he keeps the boat afloat. Angela's our straight man, and I just say a lot of inappropriate things and just get us in trouble with our commenters. So that's me. I try to bring levity, and I'm usually, whatever. It's a fun show. We just cut up. Sometimes our episodes go long. That's where we met Darin, aka Run the Clock. One bird.
3-hour episode.
Which is great. But we broke that. We broke that with a recent episode, so that's okay.
So I've tried to limit myself. So
It's okay. It's great. We love it though. It's fantastic. Our episodes run long sometimes, so be warned.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think I mentioned to Brett before, like when Jonny and I were trying to figure out NostalgiaCast, remember The Frighteners, Jonny? That was a 3.5 hour episode because we ran through the whole plot. And then we realized that's not us. Like, it's boring when we do it. So we kind of stopped like the beat by beat kind of description. But for you guys, for Dissect That Film, that's a perfect name for it. But you guys do a good job at that. Brett kind of leads you all through it, and you again, you nitpick or you talk about different things that come up as the scenes come up. So I appreciate that. Angela, was there anything you wanted to add about Dissect That Film that Dan forgot?
Don't listen to it around your kids.
Well, that's
Go ahead.
true.
Sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, it goes from Parker, who's watched all these movies, to me, who's like getting introduced to all these movies. So I'm the newbie in all of it.
You're our fresh take.
Yeah, pretty much, because there's been a lot that we've watched lately that I've never watched.
How long has it been going? How long have you been doing the podcast?
Over 3 years.
Yeah.
How long?
Over 3 years now.
Over 3 years. Yeah.
Wow.
And how many episodes was your first season? We kind of joked about that before. How many episodes before you guys?
It was a lot.
I didn't care. I don't even know. Like, I'm just on the show. Like, he won't let me leave. Like, I don't understand. No, I really don't. I don't remember it. Just at some point, we're like, you know what, dude? Let's divide this into seasons. Like, all right. And it just kind of stopped.
I think it was in the 700s.
Probably wouldn't surprise
like
me.
2 years before we even started thinking about that.
Yeah, it was
'cause
over.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a thing. I didn't.
Because
know.
How often do you record your episodes? Is it every day?
Every week.
Every week?
Once a week.
Okay.
Well, sometimes more than once.
Well, yeah, we have. If you count some of our like extra things we've done, yeah, it's been a little more. But like the core show, it's at least once a week.
Wow.
So right now you guys are in the middle of a mummy series. I guess you're kind of wrapping that up, and then you started watching Ghostbusters. I saw that, so that'll be fun. But then you guys also have your like offshoots, like your special episodes, right? Where you have covered different monster movies. And again, the appreciation that you can, or the fun that you guys have with those, we can really sense that from you.
Oh, sorry, gotta have a hydrant. This is a relic of a really old stuff I used to do a long time ago on YouTube. But anyway, I love monster movie stuff. We'll get into that in a bit. But yes, we have the Monster Zone, which is kind of a show we do. It's attached to our Patreon. You can look into that if you want. I'm not here to plug that. But I love vintage monster movies, just monster movies in general, specifically 50s, 60s, and 70s. I grew up with that stuff with my dad. So, and we have like we'll do like fresh cuts sometimes and things like that. And it came from Tubi, which is just.
So how'd you first get introduced to Godzilla? Like, where did that come about? How'd that happen?
Oh God.
When
you were what, 2, 3?
I don't even remember.
Well, let me ask you too: is it both of you that were, or is it Angela? You just kind of along for the ride? Is it? Were you?
We've been married for 17 years, and that was when I was more introduced to it. Like, I learned as I got older that my mom actually likes Godzilla. And I'm like, when were you going to tell me this? I'm like, I'm in my 30s and I just learned this about you. Like, she borrowed his, she borrowed your Shin Godzilla.
Yeah, Shin Godzilla, yeah.
And watched it. And I was like, what is this? How do I not know this about you? So yeah, like, I wasn't allowed to watch certain things growing up, and that I just never put any interest into it because I was like, well, they're going to tell me no. So more or less when we got together is when I started really getting into it.
Okay.
To answer my half of the question, I don't remember. I've always watched it. Like, I don't remember Godzilla not being in my life.
Okay.
So I really don't recall. But if I was to finger people, it would be
Please don't.
This is really going to be weird when I follow up with it if you lean in that direction. But it's dad, it's mom, and then it's my uncle, because there was always around. My uncle always had like a huge collection of horror movies, but there was always a bunch of Godzilla stuff in there. And my dad was always watching those movies. Them and mom was always influential. But yeah, it's always been there. I just don't know. It's like with dinosaurs, it's kind of like hand in hand kind of thing. So
okay.
Well, what is it about the kaiju genre and Godzilla in general? What is it about that you fell in love with, Dan? What is it about that particular thing that you've always liked?
I would assume it has something to do with the Saurian nature of like Godzilla being dinosaur related. Like, because what little kid or anybody generally doesn't like dinosaurs. Yeah. But like, I mean, I've literally inked my arm paleobiology, so like I love that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I think that's it. I just think it's the fantastical nature of it. It's the the giant creatures with the ridiculous powers. You never know what they're gonna do, and then when you get older, you're like, it's just dudes in suits. I was like, well, that's cool too. I want to be a dude in a suit. Like, I'd
Yeah.
love to do that. Like, I was like a dream as a kid. Like, I want to be like in a Godzilla movie, and now like as an adult, I'm like, God, I hope they film one near me. I want to be an extra in the crowd that's running away. Like, that's my next ticket, you know.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. I think that's it. Like, I just love just how it's done. Like, I love the handmade models, and like even if you don't talk about Godzilla movie, and if you talk about like the American versions of it, I love how it's done. I don't know, I just something about it. I've just always liked it.
Yeah, I mean that's we talk all this time about on this podcast. My three loves were Transformers, Godzilla, and James Bond. Those are the things that I grew up. Having a single mom, she wanted to introduce me to all those and make sure that I liked the stuff that little boys liked and was addicted to those things. So Godzilla, I agree with you. Like, I've always loved Godzilla. I think it's just something about being a guy in a suit and wrecking miniatures, like and fake landscapes, stuff like that. It's really fun. And just being so addicted, like in Utah, we didn't get a lot of Godzilla movies on TV. I would go to New York during the summer to spend time with family, and I would always look at the TV guide for when Godzilla movies would show up on like Channel 5 or Channel 11, anything like that. And when I found one, I would be sure to watch it. And so I would collect the VHSs, things like that. And so it's just we talked about like finally doing a James Bond movie, like episode 94 or 97, something like that. It's like, why did we go this long before I talked about one of my true loves? It's the same thing with Godzilla. It's like, why haven't we talked about this? It's crazy. But Johnny, what about you? I don't even think I've mentioned the word Godzilla to you before I mentioned we're going to do this. But what's your history with the monster?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen all the recent ones, like the ones with the CGI and that kind of. I've seen those, and I mean, they're good movies. But as far as the older ones, I'd never really been exposed to them. So this is my first experience watching one of these, old Japanese Godzilla movies, and so it was an experience. So definitely not what I'm used to.
Right. Well, Dan and Angela, Godzilla versus Megalon specifically. I know that Godzilla started out as kind of like a nuclear deterrent, or something about Japanese like guilt over the World War II and nuclear bombs, things like that. And it wasn't. A lot of people think it was inspired by King Kong, but it wasn't. It was actually inspired by Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. I think the Japanese Toho wanted to do something akin to that and kind of have their own thing, but they wanted to kind of capture that feeling of the atomic age. And I think that's what Godzilla's skin even is used to mimic the skin of people after, like, from radiation and things like that.
Yeah,
so
the
it goes
keloid
really deep.
scarring.
Exactly. Thank you I was searching for that word and you brought it up. But by Godzilla versus Megalon, it's a completely different thing. Now he's fighting for Japan. They're tag team wrestling, that kind of thing. What was your experience with Godzilla versus Megalon specifically?
Like growing up?
Yeah, I mean, your first time watching it, is this one that's always been present for you? Did you show this to Angela, one of the first things?
No. This one is not. Oh God, I'm gonna show my hand here. Okay, this was not first on the list. It was actually the following film that was first on the list, but we'll get into that later. But I remember I had this movie growing up. I had the VHS. I had the one, for those of you that remember, those hardcore collectors. I had the VHS slipcover where it was brown on the front side, and one of the on the face of the VHS and on the corner, and then teal on the back and teal on the corner. And it was of Godzilla. It was this famous shot from '54 where he's got the train in his mouth.
Yeah,
that, like, drawn image you see a lot of. But it was that image on the front, but it was for Godzilla versus Megalon.
Huh.
They didn't have the right of anything. But I remember getting this VHS like when I was a kid. I watched it several times. But yeah, I remember. I mean, it had Gigan in it. I loved Gigan when I was younger. I still do. He's a giant. My mom always called a giant cockroach Megalon. He's not. He's a beetle. Just so everybody knows. Cockroaches were in the previous movie. But it's all around. But yeah, I recall there's some stuff I remember about it, which we'll probably go into. But like, it was never really high on my list. Even though there is an obscene amount of kaiju action in this movie compared to some of the others, but it's been there, but it's not like one of my big go-tos, but it's there. It's one of, like, if somebody hasn't seen it, like, okay, you've seen these other ones, now watch this goofy stuff.
Right.
Of course, the memes and stuff that come from it too. So.
Exactly. Angela, what about you with this one?
We've watched it a couple times
because
we own pretty much every.
We have all of them.
So we
all
do
of them
all
I could
them.
physically purchase.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've watched it a few times. I don't know how many times, and definitely is one of those that I have to rewatch to remember because we watch some of the other ones more often. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's funny because Dan, you talked about the VHS. I think I had the famous one where it's Godzilla and Megalon on top of the twin towers.
Yep.
For some reason fighting.
No.
I was gonna use
Yep.
that as my background at first. I was like, I don't know if that's appropriate.
That's fair.
you can't
That's
do
fair.
that.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But yeah, oddly enough, like I own the Criterion set of these movies.
Yep.
And putting it on, number one, it was a struggle because I had to mess with the audio. Like I couldn't hear it at first. I had to change the audio from digital to something else. It took a while.
Really?
But then the other thing I realized too, Godzilla versus Megalon has been the Godzilla movie for me. I think maybe it was the first movie I ever watched. Like so many kids, I came to the 54 Gojira later. Like I didn't realize that Godzilla was serious.
Yeah.
And then so I obviously the tag team monsters and them fighting, that was the stuff that I was addicted to. So Megalon has a special place in my heart. And I didn't realize, number one, I'd never seen this in Japanese before. I'd always seen the dubbed version. So watching the Japanese version, there's just something about watching it in Japanese that makes it more respectable. Like, but I think the way to watch this movie is dubbed because that's the only way to really get the goofiness of it and just really jibe with the tone that it has, right? But
oh, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
yeah, and the other thing too is I didn't realize how much stock footage there was in this one from previous movies. There is so much, and Johnny not being familiar with the Godzilla movies, like that probably didn't phase you. Did you notice, Johnny, at all that the suit would change from time to time? It wasn't the same suit that Godzilla was wearing.
No, not really. I wasn't
It's
looking
like-
for it either, though. So
Yeah. There's a shot from Destroy All Monsters, I think, where it has that. There's a shot from Godzilla versus the Sea Monster or Bira Horror of the Deep, depending on how much of a purist you are. So of him jumping off, and so there are shots of Megalon where you can tell it's Gigan's hook.
Yep.
Because I think the history of it was they were planning on something else. I think Godzilla versus Red Moon or something like that was on tap, and then something got canceled, and then they had to put this together really quick. I think Fukuda wrote the screenplay himself, put it together. I think within 5 months they were able to finish shooting everything and get it ready. It's just an insane, and so I think isn't that why they used a bunch of stock footage for this?
It could be. I think it was also just the style at the time. Getting into the early 70s into the mid 70s was when the OPEC issues, the fuel crisis and stuff, and explosives, pyrotechnics were expensive. They were very expensive because of the lack of petroleum and stuff like that. And this not only affected big budget movies, I think it affected a lot of the films, but they started shifting to like television series, but it even affected them. I think people said you could kind of notice it because of the explosive charges of some of the movies. The colors are different because they had to use some kind of different combustible, but that has something to do with it. Yes. Yeah. Both factors, I would say.
And this came after Godzilla's Revenge, right?
Yeah. It was 3 films. No. Yeah. Because it was Godzilla's Revenge, Hedorah, Gigant, this. Yes.
So, and that one's all repurposed footage, really.
Oh my God. Yes, it is.
Oh yeah, I mean, Angela, was there anything I think you were trying to say something that cut you off. Anything about the reused footage, anything like that, or anything at all you wanted to add?
Oh, no.
Okay.
There's shots of Ghidorah in there.
I think I was just laughing because,
Yeah. I think that's the only reason that Megalon has lightning is because they had to use those shots from Ghidorah. I was like, all right, zap those tanks. From
Bunch
10
of
years ago.
random powers. Well, the funny thing about this movie is that it follows basically the same structure as every other Godzilla movie. I think they finally had the franchise down by this point. It's like you put together, and I'm sorry if I'm being disrespectful, Dan, to the series, but this is just how people look at it. It's like you have a nonsensical human story that's kind of a wraparound, and you're just kind of waiting for the monsters to show up and start fighting. And sometimes I remember Godzilla versus the Sea Monster had an interesting story. I remember that about how they found a boat or something like that, and it was a convict that was piloting the boat. Anyway, it's been a while, but like some plots are more interesting than others. I think with this one, there are so many notes that I wrote down and I'm like, what's happening? Like, why are we doing this? And it's just this, I guess it's a sign that they just rushed production. What do you, Johnny, first of all, did you notice that, or did you think that this must be what every Godzilla movie is like?
Well, having be the first time seeing a movie like this, like I didn't know what to expect, so I didn't know what I was getting into. But I did, like you, make notes like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? A lot of holes in the story there. So, I mean, we can talk about all those things, in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I was like, what am I watching? What is this?
Yeah. Is it Hiroshi? There's the inventor Goro. There's the kid Roku-chan, right? Or Rokuro, is that little kid? And then Hiroshi's the friend, the racer. And number one, it's funny that there are at least 2 chase sequences where he's chasing people around, and it seems to go on for like forever. And I'm like, oh, you're obviously just trying to pad this out. I mean, maybe this is Steve McQueen coming after Bullet or something like that. It's like you're just trying to capture that.
I guess.
But there's a part.
Were big.
There's a part where Hiroshi is talking to one of the main bad guys, and for some reason the bad guy just gives him the whole plot of what they're doing, and then he escapes, and then he's on the microphone like, oh, he escaped and he has all our knowledge. I'm like, well, no shit, right? It's like you gave him the whole plot. You didn't have to do that. So now they're aware of everything. So
Such a comic book villain, I swear.
Were there, Dan and Angela, were there any particular like plot things that happened that you thought were particularly funny?
I have things that stick in my mind in this movie, like a lot, and I don't know if you would call it plot, but how distracting is that boat he rides at the beginning of this damn movie?
Yeah, that was
dolphin boat.
The fish.
The first note I made.
I'm like, what the heck?
Every time I watch this movie, I think of that. I think of his little bike. The kid's got the baby rider, which is awesome, mind you.
Yep.
And then the kick, which we'll get to later.
Yeah.
But no, it's that dang boat. It's who built that? What is it
doesn't even
for?
go anywhere.
Yeah, what's the function of it? Why are there 3 dolphins? I don't understand it. I do know that I wanted that toy. If they had made it, I'd want it, right? The funny thing about that sequence is the way that it's shot, and there's obviously the earthquake, and then there's the whirlpool, and then they do like the matte shot after everything has disappeared. Yeah. And when that happened, I was like, oh, this is actually looking pretty good. We're in good hands here.
100%.
Within 10 minutes, all that went out the window. But at least that first beginning was something. And then later when you see Megalon, people always bring this up. When he's attacking that bridge, that's impressive. It has scale. And so there are parts
the dam?
of this. Yeah, the dam.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I love
that's
that shot.
Yeah,
it's fine. Dude, that is such a unique shot in this movie. They've never done anything like that. Like that I can think of, at least in the same way. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And he like rides it down. And he's like,
like it was like Megalon's an idiot.
Yeah, he is.
Right.
He is an idiot.
He tries to surf it, but like it just gives you a sign that if they really put effort into it, they had this down. They could have made this work. But it's just crazy that the Seatopians. First of all, it's funny. I kept writing stuff down like that plot. They stole like Aquaman stole that plot.
Yeah, 100%.
where basically the Patrick Wilson character is like, oh, he's a Seatopian, right? He's trying to fight back for them, like ruining the planet. I thought that was funny, but I laughed so hard whenever they kept showing shots of Emperor Antonio, and he's just in this toga for no reason, and it looks like he's in a Vegas showroom. Every time they cut to it, I just laughed.
The head ornament. The Megalon head ornament. I love it. Where you said something about it.
I was like, he's got one on his forehead.
It's baby Megalon head. I did, just a little aside. Apparently, he was a really cool dude. I actually had a long time ago. I had a few communications with his daughter, Robert Dunham.
Yeah.
And she talked a little bit about his work. Of course, he was in some other Toho produced products and stuff like that. And he just seemed like a cool guy. Heard some cool stuff about it. Apparently, even though he was dubbed over in the Japanese version, he could speak fluent Japanese.
Wow.
He just opted to be dubbed over for this one. I'm not sure why.
Okay.
I dig the toga, but why not?
Why not? Why not do that?
Yeah, sure.
I like that the Seatopians are, even though they haven't had contact with the human race, they're still in contact with the space planet that controls Gigan, and they're able to just call them on the phone. What are their names?
The Space Hunters from Nebula M.
Are they the same ones from Godzilla versus Gigan? Or is it different? Okay, so they
100%.
contact the cockroaches. You're telling me?
Yeah, like, hey guys, listen. Like they know because they're like it's the beetle thing, and they're even though they're not even directly related, like they're kind of similar. Like, hey, we got this big beetle and stuff. We need your big space chicken.
Yeah. And the Gigan suit, I think, was a cheaper version of what we saw before, right? Like they was cutting so many corners here. The Godzilla suit. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, go ahead. No, please carry on.
The Godzilla suit in this one is actually my favorite Godzilla suit out of all of them. And I think it might have to do with the fact that it's the first one that I saw and fell in love with. But I think they made it within like a week. So they weren't proud of it. And it was used in a lot of those TV series that you talked about, I think. Yeah,
well, I was about to say the Gigan suit, I believe, was the same suit they used for Zone Fighter. Sorry, I got a cat pushing on our door here. Hang on a second. Hold on a second.
Please don't let her in here.
Did Godzilla ever fight a cat monster? Gabor is like a cat monster, isn't he? Sorry, my mind.
Kinda. It's like a warty toad cat thing.
Something like that.
I can't.
Close.
I used to be able to kind of do the noise. I'm not gonna.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah, that's what. But no, yeah, because like they had Zone Fighter, which I don't. Why didn't they just? I'm sure we'll talk about it. Why didn't they just use Zone Fighter instead of JJ? I know why, but why? It's like you have Zone Fighter, just use him.
Right.
And I think the Gigan suit was from that. And you're right. This is actually the suit they used for this, because they had used the suit prior for the last 4 films.
Right.
And it was falling apart. So they had to make a new one for this. And this is actually the same suit they used in the following film, which is my favorite. And they changed the head. Because they went with like a softer face for this one, because they were trying to gear it more kid friendly and stuff.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, but yeah.
And I think it works. Like if you're a kid, I think this movie works its magic on you, right? It's only when you reach a certain age you're like, wait, what? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like you have all these questions. So the Jet Jaguar design, Johnny, what did you think of Jet Jaguar?
Okay, hold on. I need to kind of preface everything real quick because
Yeah.
when I first watched it,
Prefacing is good.
I got past the earthquake. I got to them in the car talking about whatever. I forgot what they were talking about.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway, and I fell asleep. And I was like, oh no, now I gotta watch it again. So the next night I watched it again, and I got to the end fight scene with Godzilla and Megalon, and I fell asleep again. And I was like, no, I don't want to have to watch it again. So like I got my wife and my son together, and I made them watch it with me. And this third time we watched it, we had a blast. We were just like finding all the holes and all the crazy, stupid stuff that we were seeing. We were laughing our heads off. And again, at the end, I got so bored I left. I was like, I can't keep watching this. Is spicy. This is so ridiculous. I was like, that's it. I think I'm done. So I left until the very, very end. I came right back, watched the end credits, listened to the final song there, and that's how my experience with it. But anyway, my first note I took was the dolphin thing, the thing, and then I was like, I remember laughing out loud when one of the Seatopian bad guys knees the kid in the when he first knees him and then throws him to the floor. I busted up laughing at that, and I was like, oh, this is supposed to be funny. I was like, okay, now I'm kind of more on board for this. And then when just the plot was so ridiculous and everything, and then the next big laugh I had when I actually stopped the play to kind of laugh for a minute was when the Seatopian guy, the guy in charge, when he was like, after 3 million years of peace, we're finally going to war. And I was like, all right, 3 million years of peace is too much peace. We can't have any more peace after 3 million years. We got to go to war now. And I was like, all these people,
We've atrophied.
Yeah, they're all like 30, 35 years old, looking pretty good for 3 million year old people. I was like, holy cow, they look great. I guess that's long enough. It's time to go to war. That cracked me up. I couldn't get over that. But yeah,
start an argument.
Yes.
Did you guys fall asleep when you were watching this? Did one of you fall asleep?
He told me I did, but I watched this movie. I'm usually the one that falls asleep when we're watching movies.
I thought she fell asleep.
I didn't.
You tend to. Nothing against you. It's fine. You like napping.
I'm sorry. I woke up at 4 a.m. I'm tired.
That's fine. I did, and I just powered through. I was like, I don't mind this stuff. So.
It's too arduous a task, especially honey, wake up! You're missing Godzilla versus Megalon. That's too much.
He's gonna do the kick. He's gonna eat his own spicy tomato.
So sometimes I'll be laying because we have a spot on the couch that I said we have an L-shaped couch. And I said, it's my spot. I said, it's got my butt indentions in the spot because I sit there so much. But that's where I fall asleep. And you okay? And I'm like, yeah. Are you asleep? No. Are you sure? No.
Well, some movies are more important than others. So I guess that's, but Johnny,
I have gone back and watched movies that I've
she finishes. She'll.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I have a couple more notes real quick. I want to get through them.
Please.
And then Segan the Jet Jaguar. That's the next thing I want to talk about.
Because this was driving me crazy. Whenever they get in the car and go anywhere, you hear the exact same squealing tire sound. And I was at the point where I'm like, what? Is that the only sound effect they have?
Yeah. Yes.
And you even hear it when they're driving on gravel, like on dirt. It's like there's no paved roads, but you hear a screeching tire sound. It was crazy. And then the other thing was, what was it? Why did they have to go to the toy store to buy that airplane? Like, why was that so important? I was like, what is going on?
I noted, I was like, oh, I love Japanese toy stores. Like I haven't been in one in forever. There was a place called Forbidden Planet in New York that I
Yes.
loved to go there.
Heard
They
of
had
it.
so many Godzilla things, and just it was a dream for people that would love Transformers, stuff like that. So when they show up at the toy store, I'm like, oh, awesome. And then they bought the plane just so they could take it back to their flat and fly it into the guy's face.
Push delivery.
What? So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Johnny. What
Yeah,
else?
But I did like the Jet Jaguar, the way he would like start to fly, whatever, that whole thing. Like that was great. I loved that.
I was gonna
And seeing the
memorize his
toy.
little oh yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Oh, his little pose he does when he gets big.
Yeah.
I love that. It's fucking great. Anyway, carry on.
Do you know, Dan? Was that an actual remote control toy that they had, or were they just throwing it from off screen? How did
Oh,
they do
they
that?
use some kind of wire rigging
Okay.
for like the toy. It's just like, and it probably had some cable system and stuff like that for it. So, like, yeah.
Well, it's funny though that Johnny is, like we talked about, if you watch this movie as a kid, it like I said, it works its magic, and you fall in love with it. You want that dolphin toy, you want that airplane, you want to be fighting like these, you want to have a jet jaguar, right? But watching it, it's like a 40-year-old adult, Johnny, it's a different story, right? Your brain just can't compute.
Right.
Question.
Yeah.
As an older viewer, how many of you noticed the titties in the back of the truck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did.
Yes.
I don't think did they cut that out for like the TV or the American version? Because when I saw it in here, I'm like, why? If it's aimed at kids, why do they have that?
Dude, this is actually something I wanted to bring up on here.
Okay.
Because you sent us a little thing. So I was like, there is a disparity, and like it's a Japanese cultural thing. I get it. But like there's a disparity in some of these films, with this being like one of the most children-friendly Godzilla films ever made.
Mm-hmm.
And you literally have this scene where you have these goons in this truck with that other goon from Zootopia and hauling those guys, and like literally in the back is just like pinups of like ladies like topless.
I didn't notice
And
that.
yes, dude. Like, and I was like watching this, it's like, all right, well, let's add it to the list. I think now if my count's or off, I'm forgetting one. There's the shot. And this is the third Godzilla movie with nudity in it.
Huh.
What were the
And
others?
they're all old ones. Well, it's the original, and that's just like indigenous nudity,
Yeah. Okay.
kind of
Right,
thing.
right.
So not like sexualized. And then this one, and then it's the operating scene of Katsura from Godzilla, Terror of Mechagodzilla. And
Right.
the original uncut version, she's exposed during that scene, which none of it's okay. This is more sexualized, I feel, but none of the other stuff is meant to be. But I know the Japanese have a different view on nudity as opposed to violence. But then you flip that on its head, and you have this scene where it's like plain in face, and the dude just like hemorrhages like blood out his face after he gets hit by it. And then if you've ever seen the Gamera franchise, which is a hyper kid-friendly kaiju series, which is
Right.
nowhere near as good in my opinion. Sorry, Gamera fans. But dude, it's horrible. Like those kaiju die the worst way physically possible. And like it's like, this is for kids. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry.
Well,
That's just a weird disparity I don't understand.
that Terror of Mechagodzilla, I saw that uncut version as a kid once, and it's one of those things that you think is like a dream, because you see it again, like, oh, did I see that right? And then you watch it again on TV, and they cut all that stuff out. So I haven't had a chance to watch that version on the Criterion disc, but
It's so good.
yeah, the cut version of it is not good. So I'm interested to see what the.
Yeah, definitely, because it adds a lot more weight to Katsura's choice. Because in the original English version, cut version, she just kind of dies. Well, she commits suicide
Right.
because of everything going on, and it like adds more weight to her story, which is probably one of the better stories of one of the older Godzilla films. But anyway, yeah, watch it, please. It's definitely worth it.
Yeah, it's on my list. But again, that's coming full circle. Like Godzilla starts serious and then ends up silly, and then they try to bring it back. Like I guess violence and nudity is a quick way to do this. To just instantly, oh, this is not for kids anymore.
It was
But-
the mid-70s.
The other thing that I thought was funny, like there's no sense to everything. Like why did they need Jet Jaguar to control Megalon? It's very arbitrary.
He gets lost easy.
Yeah.
He has no natural sense of direction. That's why he
What's
throws
the-
a fit when he disappears.
Well, I like the Jet Jaguar design. Obviously it was modeled after Ultraman. They wanted to kind of right? They wanted to tie it in with that. Was that the popular thing at the time? Even though Ultraman's an alien, not a robot.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, giant robots, tokusatsu stuff, transforming giant heroes. So that was kind of course, the big thing. But it was actually the design was originally selected in '71. They did like a Toho and Subaraya, the special effects company that did a lot of this stuff. Did a big thing for kids, like, hey, help design the creature for the next Godzilla movie, and that's kind of what happened here. But it was just a big thing at the time. Like, you had this show, you had Ultraman, you had insert 8 million, like Super Sentai, which was, of course, the basis for Power Rangers. Most people would probably know that. Kamen Rider. And that was getting big, and these bigger movie ones were starting to dwindle away. You were getting less of these and more of the television shows. And this just was the thing to do. And as some kid picked a design, they changed it a little bit, put it on screen, and still don't understand why they didn't use Zone Fighter, their own house-made superhero.
Well, it's taken after Ultraman, it seems like, in the contest with how they read. But I'm reminded, I don't know if you guys, the Kilroy was here, the Styx album, where they were dressed as the robots. The face on Kilroy, or on the robot that he impersonates, that reminds me a lot of Jet Jaguar. When I see it, I'm like, oh, Styx kind of ripped this off later. Johnny, were you familiar with that album, The Kilroy Was Here, the Mr. Roboto and all that? Was that
that song, yes, yeah. Mr. Roboto, yeah.
So in that, I think that was when Cliff DeYoung was going nuts, or he started to lose his mind a little bit. So again, this whole Japanese kind of thing he was addicted to. But so also it's like Godzilla is so on the sidelines for this. They introduce him, like, they kind of tie it in with, oh, there's nuclear testing. It affected all the way to Monster Island and stuff like that. And you see Godzilla in his suit or whatever. And then Godzilla's not in it for a while. And then I'm like, is it the boy? Is it the little kid that says, why don't we fly Jet Jaguar to talk to Godzilla? Is that his idea?
I believe so.
And then so Jet Jaguar flies off. He gains sentience for whatever reason. Like, and whenever something like that happens, they're like, well, how did that happen? It's like, oh, he just manifested. Like, he was just so determined that he became sentient. But go for it.
No, I love too the guy. I mean, he had the thing he could talk to. He could like talk to Jet Jaguar. He happened to have that. Good thing he had that.
Right. Otherwise it wouldn't have. But they send him off, and Godzilla. This movie has no establishing shots. Like Godzilla, when they cut to Godzilla, it's just a shot of close up from, and he's kind of, Godzilla's looking around like he's bored, like he's waiting to be called into action. And so it's, and later in the fight, I don't know where Goro and are, I don't know where they are in relation to where the monsters are fighting. There's no, I just need one establishing shot of like of them, like, superimposed over something, so I know where they are. There's none of that. But it's so funny that Jaguar shows up and he's able to speak to God. It's so weird. And as a kid, you accept it. You're like, oh yeah, Jet Jaguar can speak Godzilla sign language. That makes sense. Johnny, did that blow your mind a little bit? What did you think of that part?
Well, it was confusing. I don't get it.
Again, Godzilla's just waiting there to be called into action, and then it takes him forever. Like, Jet Jaguar goes to fight Megalon and Gigan and gets his ass kicked for like 25 minutes.
Yep.
And then Godzilla, I like how they show him running and jumping, and it cuts back and they're fighting. Shows Godzilla running and jumping, cuts back and they're fighting. I'm like, can we speed this along, please? But before we get into the WWE tag team wrestling part, was there, Dan and Angela, were there anything else that you wanted to mention about the movie before this moment? Any other funny parts? Anything? Is anything that we've missed?
Do you think the two male characters were like hetero life partners, or?
Sure.
Not making fun of them. I'm just
sure.
Curious.
I mean, they don't really. I think back in it's kind of like a Batman and Robin kind of scenario.
Yeah.
It's like they're just living together. And is there any other stuff going on? It's like, I don't know. You can imagine it. We're not obviously not seeing them.
They have
kind of assume they're like some kind of guardian or uncle or something, like some kind of like of the boy. Like, you don't really. Yeah. They don't tell you who they are, how they know each other, but you kind of assume, oh, they're probably family somehow. That's kind of what you assume.
I'm just concerned about the cubes hanging by chains in the office. That's what really bothers me. What the heck is going on here?
When they're in the when they're tied up, and the boy calls the one by name, but he calls the other one Mr.
The racers, you call him Mister?
They're the one they're looking for. The one that is not tied up with them.
Okay, yeah, it's
because Goro's his brother.
He calls him Mr., but then he calls the other one just by his first name. So it's like,
okay,
it's not just because they work together.
it's not firmly established
Yeah,
or
you
not
don't
that
get
well
it.
established. It's fine. I just thought it just blew my mind when
That's
I was
interesting.
reading some stuff about it that like it never dawned on me that there's just no female characters and it's not counting the plastic
haven't
saran wrap
together.
ladies that are dancing at the beginning of the movie. There's no female characters in this movie. It's so weird.
Yeah, they don't.
haven't
No
been
woman has
together
a
in the
speaking part,
beginning, You know,
So
Huh.
odd.
unless Anguirus is a woman. I don't know.
Maybe.
Who knows? But that's an interesting idea. It's like, why not?
Mhm.
Like heteronormative couple. I don't know. It's you can read a lot into that. They don't dive into it at all. So whatever. But
We can do the fight. I'm good.
Yeah, okay. I
probably
also
something I
like
forget.
when they're in the boxcar and Megalon for some reason is able to hit the boxcar and it goes like 100 miles away or something like that. And I was like, oh, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull ripped that off.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So Godzilla versus Megalon is very formative for a
Oh.
lot of people.
I'm glad you mentioned this. Actually, this is something worth talking about. This is the first Godzilla film, not counting -1. So up to -1 coming out. This is the first Godzilla film to show some type of nuclear explosion on screen.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, again, an interesting, I don't know where my mind flashed to that. It's when you watch these Godzilla movies, it's fun watching them like King Kong versus Godzilla when they're wrecking all the Japanese houses and everything.
Mhm.
It's fun because they're just wrecking these models, right?
Mhm.
And in the earlier movies, there's some real like it's heavy when things are being destroyed. There are people, we see the consequences of things.
There's more
Watching
weight.
1954 Gojira having a part where there's a mom and her kids and they're just awaiting death, and the mom's like, we'll be with your daddy soon, we'll be with your daddy
Yep.
soon. I'm like, how this is so far removed from Godzilla versus Megalon, it's crazy. And I think it's hard because even though the new Godzilla movies do this, I think there's a level of 9/11 and terrorism that's kind of baked into those images now where it's not as fun. Like the Gareth Edwards Godzilla, it's very serious and it's very harrowing, a lot of the
Mhm.
destruction. Obviously Shin Godzilla, which is funny, but it's terrifying at the same time. And then -1 also brings it back to that original idea. Before we
Mhm.
talk about the fight, let me ask you guys, you two, do you like friendly Godzilla better, or do you like Godzilla as the metaphor for nuclear menace better? What Godzilla do you two prefer?
What do you think? I just equal question. I have an answer. I just don't know if you do.
I like the Godzilla that cusses. Godzilla
Oh,
was terrible language.
Terrible language.
Was that
Anyway, good call?
Yeah. Dan, what about you?
I prefer. I'm really torn between like the nuclear analogy and then like just the force of nature.
Right.
Like kind of like the thing like because you have, for those of you that don't know, you have like the Godzilla from like the original -1 GMK. That's just an analogy for a nuke. It's like it's just an engine of destruction. That's all it is. And then you have the force of nature Godzilla that's just literally like a force of nature. You could think of him like a natural disaster. It's not targeted. It's just he's just strolling through or doing his thing. I'm kind of torn between those two. Though I don't mind like the protector of Japan, like hero version. That's fine too, but I prefer probably one of those two.
Needs
Well-
more Godzilla sleeping in the
Coliseum.
Coliseum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right, from the latest one. I think it's good that you have a mix. Like there are people like you have -1 that's out, but then you also have Kong X Godzilla or whatever that's so silly. It's funny how the MonsterVerse went so far off the rails so fast to it took however many Godzilla movies for Godzilla to become a threat to become a friend, but in the MonsterVerse movies he's like automatically a friend by the second or third movie. So
I
it's
think
funny.
great.
Yeah, but I don't mind that. I like having both worlds because it's not just tied to one thing. It's not super serious. If you don't want super serious, you have something like Megalon to kind of focus on. If you don't want the goofy, you have Godzilla -1. You have Shin, you have the original Gojira, all of that. So I like having that dichotomy there. Johnny, do you have an opinion on that at all as far as what a more effective Godzilla is for you?
No, I don't. I wouldn't say that I do because I don't know much about it. But I will say this real quick. After watching this movie, or while I was watching it, I was reminded of our Flash Gordon episode because I had kind of a similar reaction where
I was just
I
thinking that,
watched
yeah.
Flash Gordon expecting that they were making a serious movie, and so once I realized that it was like, oh, this is meant to be silly on purpose, it was a different experience. At first, I was like, "What is this? What am I watching? Are they taking it? Are they trying to make some kind of great movie, or are they just being silly and having fun?" So you look at it differently, it kind of changes how you experience the movie. But I do appreciate the fact that they made these movies because now we have these great parodies. The people can like they can rip off of this and they can kind of like, make other silly, funny movies based on how silly these movies were.
Right. Well, cutting right to the fight. The fight in this is already a parody, right? It's so silly. Like it starts off with Megalon hopping and skipping all over the place because his antennae are going wild because Jaguar's not there or whatever. I like when Jaguar
lost.
Yeah, when Jaguar shows up and he's like he laughs like he's clapping his little drills. And then for some reason again, Jaguar is just arbitrarily grows to monster size, and when it cuts to Goro again, it's like, oh, he just willed himself to do it. I'm like, okay, I'm glad we have that explanation. It's just so, just get right to it, right? But what the jump kick is iconic. Leonard Maltin famously described this movie as a ho-ho from Toho, which has always stuck with me. And I get it.
I know that.
It's funny because I get the complaints. Johnny, when you're talking about you don't understand I get that. But there's another part of me it's so fun. I still had a great time watching this, just laughing. By the time they do that song at the end, the punch, I was in hysterics. I was just like, this is such a great time. I'm having such a great time. But Dan and Angela, what is it about that fight? Again, it is a tag team fight. There are literally parts where it looks like they tag team each other, and Godzilla like fights them on his own, and then they switch and stuff like that. What is it about? Were there any particular moments in the fight that you really liked, or what is it about the fight in general that works or doesn't work for you?
Poor Gigan's arm gets
Oh.
pulled, and you can definitely tell it's like fake. It's like twisted around. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No, I love these fights. I don't know why. I guess because it's
awesome. It's not like a deep meeting. It's just
Is it literally like WrestleMania, but they're in Godzilla suits? Is that?
it has to be why I like it. But I love the weirdness of some of the fights because Godzilla can't be like a kangaroo, use his tail and like stick his legs out. That's normal. Or him flying using his tail to, or the bear hug with Hedorah, yeah. I just love those parts.
What's crazier for you, the part in Godzilla versus the Smog Monster where he's able to, Johnny? There's a part he's fighting this monster that's the product of sewage, and anyway, he's fighting this monster, and to chase after the monster, Godzilla folds into himself and he uses his atomic breath to lift himself in the air, and then he propels himself like a balloon to where he wants to go. What's worse, that? Or the jump kick in this, Dan? What is your vote? What's worse or sillier?
I think the drop. So the drop kick I think is sillier in this movie. Though I like it. Like let's not get too hasty. But at least in Hedorah he has a form of propulsion and trumpeting fanfare when he does it. So like it's way more bombastic. And it actually on our channel when we would do the thing, we was a basis for one of our emotes.
Oh, he's hugging a burrito.
Yeah. He's Godzilla flying, hugging a burrito.
Oh, that's cool.
He needs more dancing Goji in the end, though, when he wins.
No, it's great. It's great. There's a lot of things I like from this. I like the tag. I always enjoyed the like high five that Gigan and Megalon do. They're just kind of like,
it's your turn.
And like because they're whooping Jaguar's butt, and then like it just all goes downhill. So
yeah, I like that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, it's the spicy potato.
Yeah,
it's where like he Megalon spits the spicy potato. Jaguar like has enough time to grab this like live frag and just like throws it back in his mouth. It doesn't blow up, but
somebody said something like they're in the trenches during war and there's a grenade and Jaguar's able to throw it away. My wife walked in again. She knows that I love Godzilla. I kept that from her. I kept the Godzilla and the and later Batman. All these fetishes and these loves that I kept that a secret from her when we were dating because I didn't want her to not date me anymore. But like,
is this your Bruce Wayne?
Yeah.
Okay. Carry on.
But like with Godzilla, she knows that I love it. So when I put this on, she wasn't going to sit and watch it with me. Are you kidding? But she came in at a part where Megalon throws one of those things out of its mouth, and she looked at it and goes, "Was that a meatball?" It's so weird. Like the powers are just, and he can drill into places, and they can't tell where he is and stuff like that. I really like that Megalon throws fits. Like when things don't go his way, he throws a sissy fit, like he's just a child.
They started getting more personality with some of the kaijus because Gigan is notoriously a coward. Like when he starts, like the odds start shifting in his favor, he's like, "I'm out." Like,
Yeah.
And then you had like temper tantrum here, which is great.
Right. Johnny, was there any particular
Yes,
whole fight
actually,
just
there was one more thing I wanted to mention, and that was when they're in the helicopter trying to find Jet Jaguar, and he tells him, "Jet Jaguar, stop!" and he just stops midair. And he's like, he
Normal.
doesn't fall; he just stops midair, and he can just hover there. That was
Yeah.
kind of like, what?
It's a toy. He can do whatever he wants. Was there a particular moment in the fight that just made you
Oh, the fight.
howl?
Oh, sorry, yeah, the fight.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. That was funny.
My critique was it just went on too long because, like I said, I fell asleep. I was like, when are you going to stop with this? Like, how long does it have to go on for? So that was my only critique of it. I thought it was fun. It was fun to watch, but like I said, it went on too long.
I like when they're surrounded by the fire and it looks like they're just SOL. But then Jet Jaguar remembers, oh, I can fly. Why didn't you think about that like 10 minutes ago?
Yeah.
And then the Gigan and Megalon, there's no hope for them. Again, you talked about the arm. When Jaguar breaks Gigan's arm, is able to lift him up. It was like, oh, this is great. I'm having such a fun time.
You talk about this scene because like when they figure out he can fly, like Megalon and Gigan literally is just a shot of them just like like it's like okay.
I forgot.
Defeat.
Absolutely. So yeah, this is, I don't know, there's not really a lot of, this is the kind of movie, we can talk about the history of Godzilla and everything, but this is not the kind of movie you can do like a really deep dive. It is just, it's silly. And I like I said, I get that people push back on it, but it's like, yeah, but this is the Godzilla that I remember when I was a kid. I like that there's the serious stuff in case I need it, but if I'm not in the mood for the super somber stuff, like I'm glad that this exists. I'm glad that there's a part of me that wants that dolphin boat. It's
Yes.
wanting to collect Godzilla toys. I mean, that was something that was just huge for me as a kid. And now that I'm an adult and I have the money to do that, I'm more worried about bills. So I kick myself.
Yeah.
I ordered mine from Mandarake.
Is that
'Cause
cheaper?
It can be, but because Mandarake is, of course, a Japanese store, and it's like
Mhm.
a secondhand store.
Yeah.
They have a big chain of them. But because at least last I checked, and I think it still is, the yen is so much in the tank right now compared to the US dollar. It's like we pay like 2/3. Like it's ridiculous. Like I mean, the exchange rates obscene, so you get pretty good deals on some stuff. Like I bought 2 figures in here, which are normally rare figures in the United States, about $100 a piece. I think I paid like $60 for the pair of them.
Oh,
So good
Okay.
stuff.
A little bit to get here.
It does, but
Because
it's
you pay for shipping, which is on the
yeah, it's
lower-
expensive. Well, it's
it's
still
the lower-
expensive for Japan.
yeah, but it's the lower end of how fast shipping.
Yeah, and usually like it's good stuff, but just there's no, you don't go through a website like through like you don't use like a fulfillment service. You literally buy it from Mandarake. They have an English thing. They have a bunch of shit, but it is what it is. Anyway, not here for that, but they got some good stuff. I can tell you about later.
okay. Yeah, I'll have to direct, because I'm not against owning Godzilla toys. I just don't have the time to sit and like I wanted to as a kid. Godzilla versus Megalon, it's not only popular for me, but it was popular for American audiences because I think they got a hold of it and it was in the public domain. So they're just able to show it everywhere. I think John Belushi hosted. They cut this down to like a 45-minute, which is not hard to do, but they cut it into a 45-minute episode or something that they could air in an hour. And they had John Belushi in a Godzilla suit, I think, that was
Yep.
hosting it.
Yeah.
But that's how everybody got, in America, at least I believe, that's how everybody got attached to Godzilla because of this movie. It was really popular. It's like a cult thing. And I'm glad that it's not just me that was addicted to Megalon. I'm glad that was a lot of people's kind of gateway into Godzilla. Was there anything else? This has been a great conversation. We could talk forever, and we could do a series where we just talk about Godzilla movies. All of us
I'm all
could
for
just do that.
A Godzilla podcast.
Yeah, we could just do
It's
that,
weird.
right?
Just add another one to it.
Yeah, bring
But
the
how-
number in here.
Oh, yeah,
How
sorry.
lucky are we though that, again, I told you about
It's okay.
trying to find Godzilla movies playing on TV, and it was hard to. There'd be one every other week or something like that. But now you can
Yep.
go on YouTube and you can find them whenever you want. You can, now that we're adults, we have the money. We can work and we can buy die-cast Godzilla toys. We can buy, sets and things like that. I mean, it's crazy that as a kid you dreamed of being able to do that, and now as an adult it's available, and I don't know. I don't dive into it as I imagine myself doing as a kid. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me. I just buy stuff every once in a while, but I always make like when a new movie comes out, I always see it, and I always buy like when it hits home video,
Right.
or occasionally get like shirts.
Yeah.
You can't see it by my mic. It's not Godzilla,
Shirts
but
are-
it's Godzilla adjacent. So
Right. That's the Mysterians, right? Is that
yep,
what
Mogera from Mysterians? Love
That's
that
right.
stuff.
Mogera, who is in the Godzilla NES game. I like that you're able to play or fight him.
It's one of my favorite games, dude.
Did you ever play that Godzilla game, John? Did you know there was an NES Godzilla game
No.
where they took Godzilla and Mothra and they like transported them to another planet where they fought like gladiatorial style all these different monsters? And Ghidorah was like the final boss.
It's actually pretty well designed game considering
is.
it's based on a movie property. It's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
I love it, but I'm biased. So
Yeah, I love that game. I think I might have it somewhere in a storage or something like that. But
yeah.
anyway, so Godzilla's just been really huge for me. I like that it's like I said, I like that you can have a -1, but you can also have a Godzilla X Kong, and you can have both worlds. But like, was there any other thing that you guys wanted to add to this conversation or about Megalon or anything like that? Any kind of final capper?
Anything?
I don't have anything to add for that. I just have to show off something before we go.
What are you showing off? Oh, okay. Okay, when you do that, I'll do my thing. But anyway, a couple things. Megalon should be in more movies. He's only ever been in this and in the CGI short they did for the 50th anniversary last year.
That's right.
He's Jet Jaguar movies by himself.
Sure, give JJ a movie. You know,
JJ the Jet.
don't
Plane.
explain it. Yes, JJ the jet plane.
Thanks.
Anyway, just explain all of his powers. That the reason he knows how to do his stuff is because scientists have invented magic. Boom, solves all your problems. And then if you've never seen these old movies, give them a shot. Like if this one's not your thing, like because some people don't like the super kiddie ones, it's not super. Believe me, there's as far as kid friendly shows, there's much worse than this. Believe me, I've seen Daigoro versus Goliath or whatever.
I was gonna say, please do not say final.
Not Final War. I'm not talking about that movie either. Anyway, there's a lot of fun stuff in the 70s, or even older stuff, newer stuff. There's a huge range of things. So I recommend giving them a shot. They're just fun. They're not, I don't think about them too much unless you get into like a couple like the original 84 Final Wars, Shin Godzilla, stuff like that are more kind of like a serious show or try to have a message. Most of them are just fun.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean,
no, you could just watch a movie to have fun. It's okay. They don't have to have a deeper meaning.
Right. And this is, again, when I 70s and finally decided to do Godzilla, I was like, well, which Godzilla? I couldn't even get the words out of my mouth. I was like, oh, Megalon. That's the one that I'm attached to the most. Like, I've got to do that. We've got to talk that one. So, like you said, we could bring up the history and everything which you guys have done. And I really appreciate that. Like, there's so much rich stuff, and you could talk seriously, you could talk silly. It's just great. Johnny, was there anything else you wanted to add about Godzilla in particular?
No, just one more question. What was Easter Island all about? Like, why was that even a thing? Like,
did they just have footage of Easter Island?
Yeah,
and
I
they
guess
incorporated it.
That's
Wow. If it stumps Dan, then there's really no point for it at all.
I think it was just to have some relevant connection that people might know.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kept waiting for explanation. I never got it. So.
Yeah,
I
they
just
really
assume it's as much of a reason that Squidward lives inside one. So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess you don't need an explanation for that. Dan, Angela, this is having you on here. I'm always reminded what good people you are and what good friends and good conversationalists. I love chatting with you guys, and so yeah, I'm always surprised that you two and Brett always talk about like, oh, I'm surprised that people like us, and it's like, why wouldn't you? Like it's so fun. You guys have such a good rapport, and it's, one of the things that I've said to you is you guys have such a positive attitude about everything that when you guys covered Spawn, I commented on how terrible the movie was, but then you were like, oh, but we kind of liked it. I was like, oh, I feel bad now. Like I didn't mean.
You can shit on it. It's fine.
Yeah, that's a terrible movie.
Ghostbusters 2016.
Oh, Ghostbusters 2016.
I got mad. I threw my notebook.
There's things we don't like, but we'll try to make them fun.
Yeah. When there are things that you don't like, that's when you know that it's bad. And I think you need that in a conversation. Angela, I think you need somebody that's kind of gives a new perspective to things. I think it's a good kind of dichotomy to have different personalities when you're talking about these movies.
Ooh, me and him are the complete opposite when it comes to that.
Absolutely. We figured it out.
Yeah, you figured it out. It's a good. You're one of my favorite couples, and I just love that you're able
Aw.
to do this together. So that's great.
I
But
appreciate it.
tell us about.
Makes my icy heart a little bit warmer.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, before I let you show off your merchandise or whatever your Easter eggs you want, but tell us how we, and if you want to rub it in Parker's face a little more, you can. But how do we find Dissect That Film? What are some things you're proud of? Like, what if you were to tell people to listen to episodes, what would be the first one you would suggest? I mean, what can you tell us about Dissect That Film to kind of sweeten the deal for everybody?
All right. Shoot, now I blanked. I had it all set up and it's just gone. All right. Please tell me you're editing this. This is terrible. I literally just brain farted.
No, I'm not editing.
We have
anything.
episodes.
Good, perfect. Leave it in then. Just go watch the damn show. Like I can tell you what we got coming up, and I can tell you what movies you should watch. Our episode Predators we did with Podcast of the Woods. You should watch any of the Darren Lundberg episodes. They're really long. You can't miss them.
Put you to sleep.
Oh, especially that one that we Jurassic.
Jurassic World Dominion.
Yeah, that we all had issues.
No, but I will say
So
one of my
sorry.
favorites. I'll never forget it. Is we haven't done a lot of Godzilla stuff, but there is a few of them. Go check those out. We do have a Godzilla month coming up in November
Ooh,
for his
okay.
70th anniversary. So all Godzilla movies all November for us. But
Tag this episode when you do that. Make sure that we hear this conversation.
Definitely.
I will do my best to remind Parker. And
I'll do it for him.
there you go. The old Rankin and Bass Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I was gonna say that.
One of my favorite episodes we ever did. Like,
Okay.
I love it so much. What about you?
But
You gotta have one.
you without a Santa Claus.
You're Without Santa Claus is really good too.
That's mine.
That's yours. Is that your choice?
That was my pick.
That's fair.
That's the one I picked.
I know. But is that your like go-to one?
Well, you were mentioning Rankin Bass. There's a lot we've done recently that I have thoroughly enjoyed. I may not show my true feelings sometimes because it's kind of hard for me to talk over those two because they talk a lot. Yeah, and I'm usually sitting here like taking in everything they say. And a lot of times when I get put on the spot, I'm like, forgot what
I
I'm
just
gonna
did
say.
a few minutes ago.
Yeah. Like I have all this stuff that I'm gonna say, and it's like, whew. Go watch the Prey. When we did Prey, that was very good.
Okay. You mentioned
Or
Predators.
any of our
Was there a series? You guys did a Predator series, I'm guessing? I need to
No,
check.
I think it just worked
No.
out that way. Like we
Really?
did.
because we did the Prey. It was more of like a fresh cut when we did Prey.
Yeah, we
Oh.
did Prey, and then Predator just happened to be like right around the same time because we knew that
Okay.
was coming out.
Yeah.
Or any of our alien stuff. I like the alien stuff.
Yeah, Alien. Yeah, the Alien stuff was good too.
Okay.
That's a little bit back there, but
That's relevant. New Alien
Yeah.
movies out.
Yeah,
Just-
that makes well, Johnny. You see this rapport that these two have. This is exactly what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. This is why I wanted to have them on. It's you listen to them, and you're like, oh, like it's so nice to have what they have. They have something special. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys. But yeah, Dissect That Film. Great show, great podcast. I'm glad that you have 700 episode seasons. Way to stick to that. It's great.
We're trying. All right.
All right, so we can find you. Where can we find you on the internet?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's the thing that my brain exploded. Any major podcasting service. We're on YouTube, Dissect That Film. We're on
Yep.
Twitter, Dissect That Film. We're on Threads or something, Dissect That Film. And I'm working on the Pornhub, so keep your eyes on that one.
Okay. Well, I have
He's
a
getting the
window.
OnlyDans started.
There you go. There you go.
All right. Well, again, such a pleasure having you guys on. I'm glad that you guys are out there and you
Thank you.
exist, and you do have a fan in me and in Johnny, and you can see on Johnny's face. See, so you at least have two
Beaming.
fans. Yeah. So, what was it you wanted to show us before we let you go?
Oh, well, she's
Don't just ignore the one wing missing because I don't know where it is.
Well, it depends on how you show it to us. We can imagine the wing actually being there.
I hope that's the right way. I'm so
It's
sorry.
not, but it's okay.
You'll hear everything in reverse.
This is
I'll-
my
I won't-
this is my pride and joy. I love Ghidorah,
Uh-huh.
and this is my. I have to keep the wings off because they are like super fragile
Okay.
and they like pop off. And we have
kids.
we have
Children,
busted
yeah.
one.
It's around here. I know where it's at. It should be in there somewhere.
It's out
Ugh.
there. But yes, like I have to show this off when we talk about Godzilla because Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is my favorite.
King Ghidorah. You mean Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster?
Well, yes.
Don't
but
mix it up. 'Cause people
I know.
people like me.
People
Like,
throw
no, that's the one with time traveling and the Caucasian android.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
there's dust all over it. I have cobwebs.
Well, hey, that's gorgeous. Wow. Okay. But you do have the wing somewhere else. It's not just lost to
out
time.
there. No,
Okay.
it's out there.
She's got
Okay.
all the King Ghidorah stuff. Anytime something to do with King Ghidorah, I try to get it for her.
And Noodle Dora.
Well,
Which
we
is-
won't talk about that.
All right. Well, that's. Ooh, I'm jealous of your toy collection. So, guys,
It's not
This-
that immense. We just have some key pieces. that's
well,
all.
you have enough. Like, if you have one thing, you're kind of trumping me. But guys, again, this has been a great conversation. I'm looking forward to having you guys on again. This is not just a one
Thank you.
time. It's just a question of
you.
trying to figure out
I
how to
like
get
it.
you back on, but and all that. But Johnny, was anything else you wanted to say to them, or?
No, I mean, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming
My
on.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank
Nice
you,
to
man.
meet you.
Yeah.
All right. So again, we'll be in touch and we'll try to get you back anytime we want to cover. Obviously, you're in for any Godzilla movie we cover. I don't know when the next one we'll do, but like you don't have a choice. You're automatically on for that one. So
I got a question.
Yeah.
I don't know your filmography you've covered. Have you done Iron Man 2?
no, we try to stay. We haven't really done right, Johnny. We haven't really done. We did Popeye. Were there any other comic book movies we've done?
I mean, Batman.
No,
And-
Batman. That's right. Our first YouTube. That's right.
If you ever do, holler at me. Just saying.
Rocketeer. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Iron Man
Rocketeer.
2.
Remember, Mr.
Okay.
It's like Mr. Stark, palladium in the chest. Terrible way to die.
Ooh.
Love that movie, dude.
All right. Good. If we're ever to cover those, we need somebody that would actually defend Iron Man 2. So.
I'm the guy. I'm the guy.
All right. Well, Dan, Angela, we really appreciate you. Everybody listen to Dissect That Film. It's a great podcast. It's conversational, and that's what I love. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys. We'll see you down the road.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Bye.